Okay, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But this topic has been on my mind for the longest time. And because I'm finally in a position where things are relatively stable, I can turn my attention back to YouTube. And I can finally talk about this because, oh boy, do I have a lot to say. So, suffering. We all go through it, and some go through it more than others, and some go through it less than others, but we all suffer. The definition of suffering is the state of experiencing physical, mental, or emotional pain, distress, or injury. And oh boy, have I gone through a ton of that throughout my life, including in the year of 2025. And you know, for as hard as that is, the thing that hurts me even more than that is when people either invalidate suffering, or compare it to theirs, or compare their suffering to someone else's. It genuinely grinds my gears and makes me want to run their head through a brick wall because why? No, like actually, what do you gain from it? Tell me, I'd love to know. You can probably tell by now that I'm very passionate about this topic. But yeah, no, please enlighten me, Mr. and Mrs. Two-time winner of the Suffer Olympics. Please inform me. Because from my experience, all it does is first of all make you one of the most insufferable people ever. Second of all, it makes everybody else around you feel bad. And third of all, it ignores the nuanced fact that everyone suffers in one way or another. It came free with your being a human. I'm gonna try to go through all of these and more talking points in a more orderly and calm way for the remainder of this video. I just needed to get my anger out a bit first before doing so. Firstly, again, we all suffer and it's part of what makes us human. Everybody goes through trials and tribulations that were designed for them and them alone to handle. So making someone feel bad by saying their suffering and what they're going through isn't that bad compared to yours and what you're going through isn't a good thing to do. And in fact, it makes you a jerk and annoying. I personally have to deal with a lot from a lot of people and things and even places, unfortunately. And you can bet it doesn't help when you have people saying that your stress from school isn't real stress compared to managing a household or paying bills, or someone constantly saying to you all the 50 million things that make their life worse than yours whenever you want to open up to them or vent. Or it can be someone who constantly tries going trauma for trauma with you whenever possible as if it's a competition, and that's something deeply personal that if given the chance you most likely wouldn't have wanted to have gone through. All of these examples and more are pretty relatable to most of us, I'd say, and it doesn't make you feel too good, now does it? So then don't do it to others. It can also have the added side effect of people not wanting to open up to you about what they're going through. And if you really cared about somebody, I'd assume you'd want them to feel comfortable talking to you about anything, right? So then don't do that. Simple rule of thumb, if it wouldn't make you feel good if it was done to you, then don't do it to someone else. Another thing is that it makes others around you feel bad. This kind of ties back into what I said before about not doing it to others what you wouldn't want done for yourself, but it goes deeper than that. Without going into detail about it, I deal with this a lot from my own family. There have been many times where some family members, and especially the men in the family, dismiss mental health struggles or other things I was dealing with and or suffering through because it wasn't the same type of pressure that they themselves were going through. Everything that I was going through was hand-waved away as either me being ungrateful to God, me being weak or dramatic, or me not knowing what real stress is, which by the way, is that real stress quote unquote in the room with us? Because you do know it can take many different forms, right? Duh, me struggling in school isn't the same as paying off a house, for example, but they're both still stressors. Bottom line is that anybody who attempts to use their own suffering to automatically win a Suffer Olympics competition that only they're the known competitors in, or to use it as an excuse to be a bad person, is already lost and isn't seeing the point. Apples can't be compared to oranges, but they're both still fruits. And again, if you really cared, you'd try showing sympathy for them, as you may not be able to relate to or understand one another's situations, but you can still, I don't know, not constantly invalidate what they go through and dare to say they have it easy just because it's not exactly what you yourself are going through at the same time. God, I can't stand some of you people. I'm not really even calling out anybody specific, but again, this is something I've experienced for years and years and years and years from many different people, and I'm just fed up, and I can't be the only one. One last thing before I change gears is that it ignores the fact that everybody goes through challenges. Think about it. What's that gonna do to somebody when they're constantly, and I do mean constantly, told that what they're going through is invalid? Like, yalla fi baladia, and then I didn't freaking ask, so asko. In fact, it may even make some people less likely to care about what your own issues are, because why should they when you did nothing but invalidate and belittle their own? Not me per se, because I'm always gonna try to be a kind and understanding person who at least tries to see things from other people's perspectives, but for some other people, they may just not do that, and I honestly wouldn't blame them. It just takes a little bit of effort to be an understanding person. Just put your ego to the side and hear people out. Everyone's going through something, and the statement of you don't know what people are going through really does hold water. It's about thinking beyond yourself and putting your own pride to the side and being kind and understanding. And you'd be surprised at what that can do for others and for yourself. It can come back to you in a positive way the next time you yourself are in a bind, so try it sometime. Now to the next part of the video. This part's gonna be a lot shorter and more of a lightning round format of shutting down potential arguments and rebuttals to everything I just said. First off, if I suffered more, I get to talk louder. This is stupid because trauma isn't a megaphone you unlock after enough trauma EXP, and there isn't a leaderboard leaderboard to be at the top of. It's something that comes with the right to be heard and the responsibility not to be a jerk about it and wield it as a cudgel against people who you think don't deserve to speak on what they themselves have gone through. Let's just say you did suffer more. Okay, cool. But why does that mean that others should shut up when they try to speak about their own experiences? Because newsflash, louder doesn't equal right. Cars are loud and I don't see them making any compelling arguments. I literally have to hear cars outside of my house whenever I try to record a video. If anything, you'd expect someone who suffered more than you to be more understanding, but no, that seldom ever happens. Next point, if I struggled without help, you shouldn't need help either. Buddy. Suffering without help isn't a flex. It's just an unfortunate thing that happened. In fact, I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10, you ask anybody who suffered more than you, they probably would have wanted to have help. Like, I'm sorry that insert obviously bad thing that happened to you, but why are you butthurt that I got help and you didn't? And yes, I am fully aware that many structural and in some cases global differences in the level of help that you can get do exist. But at the same time, I can't control that and you can't control that. So instead of tearing me down for it, let's try to build a dialogue so that I can help you because, for example, I might have had more privilege than you. Okay, let me help you, but I can't do that and I won't do that if you're just gonna sit here and tell me every single reason why I and what I have gone through is inherently invalid just because of circumstances and luck. And then in other cases, you raw dog your trauma, and on some level I can respect that, but not everybody can do that. So for those who can't, they shouldn't be put down for it. And some people go through their suffering with no help, not even by choice. So honestly, if you're bragging about that when you had the choice when others, including me in some cases, didn't, you're not the good or brave person you may think of yourself as in the sense. Next point, which kinda ties back into the last one, back in my day we didn't have depression or anxiety or other mental illnesses and or mental health struggles. Yeah, that was the same generation that tied autistic kids to radiators, made fun of men for suffering from mental health and loneliness, while at the same time pushing the narrative of men having to be lonely because nobody would feel bad for them or care for you as a man unless you're a provider. It's the same generation that, depending on the age of a specific person in question, banned women and ethnic minorities from voting across multiple different countries. The same generation, which again, depending on the age or specific person in question, invented some of the worst racial slurs known to man. I could go on, but I think you get the point. You did deal with these things. You just didn't have the words for it. And again, it goes back to that whole thing of you don't get to be mad at and criticize us because we're doing the things that you either couldn't do or didn't even try to make a reality. It just makes you jealous and bitter. And if anything, depending on what we're talking about, it'd make you the lazy one. And then you guys have the nerve to take it out on us for expressing ourselves. And don't even get me started on if there's a guy expressing himself. And not even on any gender war stuff or which gender suffers more stuff, because girls' suffering is only expected to be expressed in a very limited and specific way for arbitrary reasons. You weren't mentally healthier, tougher, or less sensitive. You endured the same and honestly even worse stuff than us. The only difference is that we're actually trying to do something about it, and you guys hide it behind enough copium to drown an elephant. We didn't suddenly invent any new things out of thin air. We just simply actually gave them names and developed the tools and social and physical infrastructure to handle them. This stuff didn't spawn in alongside Wi-Fi 6.7 and the latest iPhone model. We just all decided to stop wearing it as a badge of honor to weaponize and instead as scars to deal with and talk about with care. We also stopped pretending that being miserable 24/7 was a personality trait instead of, oh, I don't know, literally textbook depression. Like, it made me stronger. No, it freaking didn't. It just became an excuse to view trauma and suffering and mental health struggles and mental illness as a rite of passage instead of issues to be earnestly fixed. Bottom line, to the people who compare suffering, you're asking for understanding but you're refusing to give it, and you demand empathy while mocking vulnerability. And then you get offended when anybody points this out to you, and sometimes you even begin to move the goalposts. You're also ignoring that privilege in one or a few or even most areas, no matter how significant they are, doesn't cancel out a lack of privilege in other or multiple other areas. And lastly, that suffering isn't a competition and empathy isn't a finite resource, and the time you put into using your own suffering as duct tape to put over somebody else's mouth would be much better spent using it as a torch to illuminate the darkened hearts of others. Moral of the story, eat your greens and insert what I literally just said in the last sentence and stand Reze from Chainsaw Man, which, by the way, I watched the Reze arc film multiple times now and I am not okay. Frick you, Makima. Okay, bye for now.